I always get that voice, and I'm not sure why. All right, but
It's all
I'm
good.
going to share the screen, and then we'll be off to the races. So
Oh boy, you're on mute. Yeah, I can't hear it. There you go.
great start. So
Yeah,
this is
no
day one
worries.
of the Ultimate Combat Sports Conditioning Masterclass. So today we're going to go through a little bit of an introduction, and then we're going to go through exactly what the energy systems of the body are and why they matter to combat sports athletes. So a little bit about me to start us off. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, how I came to do what I do today. So I started competing in powerlifting when I was in high school. And before that time, pretty typical story. I was just a little fat kid that didn't feel like he had any purpose. And so competing was kind of the thing that gave me life. Like that was when I started to really feel like, I knew what life was all about. I knew I kind of, I found my first love. So I started competing and immediately went gung ho into training. I started hitting it 110%. I was lifting every single day, trying to go as heavy as I could, as often as I could, and really just didn't like the idea of taking advice from other people because I was seeing some results. So me being the naive kid I was, thought that I knew what I was doing. So this worked really well for me for a short period of time. I broke 8 Canadian records in high school as a powerlifter, and before I was 21. And so I also had started coaching other students at my high school and through to my university years. And so this was kind of when I really first discovered that I was going to be a coach one day. So basically, I continued to compete, I continued to train, and my motto was I was just taking pride in the fact that nobody was doing as much as me. Nobody was lifting as heavy, nobody was pushing as hard, nobody was lifting as often. And after pushing myself that hard for that long, I started to learn the hard lessons that would actually later lead to me doing what I do now, and basically the motto that I've built my entire company off of. In 2013, I had the opportunity to compete for Team Canada at Powerlifting World Championships for U19 athletes. And continuing to train the way that I was training, I kept pushing and pushing and pushing until one day I popped out my left shoulder while I was benching. So obviously my numbers dropped a lot, but my dumbass mentality kept going with the attitude of this is just part of the game. And I just started compensating and changing how I was training so that I could avoid the pain that I was in. And again, my focus was just to keep grinding because injuries are a part of the game. But my performances went down the toilet really, and I lost my opportunity to compete for Canada. So this led down a path of injury, 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 pain, 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 injury. Because I was too stubborn to admit that I didn't know everything. And I was strong, but I had no actual proper foundation to support that strength. So this led into my more and more and more of my coaching career. So like I said, my coaching career started when I was in high school. I was coaching younger students in powerlifting while I was competing. And I actually coached one of them to breaking a world record and winning a national championship at the U16 level. I continued to compete, but I discovered that coaching was really my number one love, my number one priority. And I cared more about the athletes I was working with than I cared about my own success. In the beginning, mostly because I wasn't seeing any success anymore as an athlete, and the athletes I was working with were. So I actually started a powerlifting club at my university, and I was helping through my 4 years there with strength and conditioning for the football team, the basketball team, the rugby team, and basically any other athlete out there. So I was eventually forced out of competing, mainly because my body was broken. And while I was in university, I fully dove into the world of strength and conditioning. And I actually spent 3 summers working with the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL. So basically, how does all of this lead into me working with combat sports athletes? Like I touched on before, my competition career ended because of misguided training and ego. I was going too hard too often and didn't want to slow myself down because I wanted to, looking back on it, I didn't realize this consciously at the time, but looking back on it, I was more interested in showing everyone how strong I was and how heavy I could lift than I was in actually hitting the platform and competing at my best. And this led me again to not building a proper athletic foundation to support the heavy load of training I was doing. And the focus being in the wrong spot led me to injury, led me to burnout, and eventually led to me, like I said, losing an opportunity to compete for Canada and cutting my career short. Later on, I realized that the main point of my training was extremely misguided and the focus was not actually where it needed to be. And that leads into a lot of what I do now. So the focus, like I said, was on everything I was doing in the gym. I was always focused on, I'm going to lift X amount of weight today. I'm going to do X amount of reps today. I'm going to, do this kind of set or that kind of set. And my focus was never on how is this going to affect my ability to compete. I was so focused on the outcome in the gym of I need to lift this amount that I wasn't thinking about, hey, my body feels terrible today. And if I lift that amount, it might hurt me. So I should probably dial it back and focus on recovering instead of focusing what I was actually doing when I was in the competition. So in 2017, I moved to Calgary to pursue a job at the Athlete Factory, a high performance training center here. And this was actually the strength and conditioning home of Hakeem Dawodu, who now fights in the UFC. I never actually worked with Hakeem myself, but following his training and seeing the things he was doing really helped me resonate with the story and the life of combat athletes. I love that fact that their success or their failure comes down to the work that they put in. I love the individual nature of the sport because it was very similar to the sport that I competed in as well. And I was desperate to start working with fighters. So eventually I got a couple of my own fighters into the gym. And as I got deeper and deeper into coaching them, I started seeing a lot of similarities between combat sports athletes and powerlifters. Mainly the mentality of always being the hardest worker in the room, things like that I've heard, like if you're not puking, you're not trying, rest is for the weak, injuries are part of the game, all of these things that basically promote work until you drop instead of promote focus on being better when you compete. Now, seeing these guys do these wild sessions, like I have a number of athletes I've worked with that are going on 3-hour runs multiple times a week, doing hours and hours and hours of conditioning every single day, just a ton of stuff that really and truly doesn't apply to how you perform in the ring or how you perform in the cage. That really just got me thinking, this is an area where I can make a difference because I've learned these lessons in my own coaching career, my own athletic career, by, again, pushing myself way too hard, way too fast. And in turn, I ended up messing myself up. And so my goal now as a coach is to help athletes avoid the mistakes that I've made in the past. So, we went a little too far. There we go. So what is conditioning? Why am I talking about this? So basically, I wanted to give you all an idea of exactly where I come from and exactly why my focus is where it is, because a lot of people hear me say things like, you don't need to run every single day and look at it as me saying, you don't need to work hard to succeed in a sport. Whereas really the focus of anything like that I say that you may or may not have heard me say online, the focus of that is me to explain to you that the goal of training is to help you succeed in sport. So that means the goal of a boxer should not be run 20 miles a week. The goal of a boxer should be win a boxing match on the night of the fight. And sometimes that's going to involve more conditioning work. But if you have an injury, you should not be pushing through that injury to go running just to put the miles in. You need to find ways that you can improve your cardio without actually negatively affecting that injury. So this leads me into what actually is conditioning. Most people look at conditioning and they think, conditioning is these like crazy drill sergeant exercises, Navy SEAL kind of training where you're just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until you can't do anything else. Whereas in actuality, conditioning is an athlete's ability to meet the energy demands of their sport. So I know we've got a boxer in the room fighting 3 2-minute rounds right now. You are a well-conditioned athlete if you can fight for 3 2-minute rounds with 1 minute of rest in between. So making sure that you can be explosive, you can be fast, you can keep your hands up, you can move in and out of the pocket, you can move laterally, you can do all the things at the speed you need to do them for the duration that you need to do them. That's it. As a power lifter, for me, being well conditioned meant that I could do one heavy rep of a squat, a bench, or a deadlift with a 9 to 10 minute break in between, because that was the way those competitions are set up. Right? So good conditioning is not how hard can you go, how long can you go. Good conditioning is your ability to meet the energy demands specifically of your sport. So, and then again, as another example, as a pro MMA fighter, you are well conditioned if you can strike and grapple for 5 minutes at a time, followed by 1 minute of rest in between rounds. So what I see a lot of athletes do is, again, going way too hard, doing more, and not actually focusing on proper conditioning that's going to set them up for the demands of the sport. Instead of thinking, how am I going to be able to fight for my 3 2-minute rounds? They're thinking, how much more conditioning can I do? And there hits a point where doing it that way is actually going to decrease the impact on your performance and actually make you worse, because you're overdoing it on your joints, overdoing it on your muscles, and in turn burning yourself out, getting injured. And by the time you get to the fight, you're dealing with all kinds of aches and pains, all kinds of injuries, all kinds of issues that you didn't need to deal with. So we'll get more into this in the later days of this masterclass as well, but this does not just mean doing 5-minute conditioning sessions either for an MMA fighter, or 2-minute conditioning sessions if you're an amateur boxer right now. This means setting yourself up for the demands that those 2 minutes or those 5 minutes are going to place on the body. So, what are the energy systems and why do you care? So our main focus when conditioning for combat sports are the energy systems. By better understanding the function of each system, you can better understand how to train it, and in turn, how to gain massive benefits to your performance in the fight. Our body has 3 energy systems: the anaerobic alactic system, the anaerobic lactic system, and the aerobic system. So we'll get into a little bit about each one. So first off, we're going to talk about the aerobic system. So the aerobic system is basically the generator of the body. So while you're moving, while you're fighting, while you're throwing punches, slipping, doing whatever it is you're doing, the aerobic system is in the background, just regenerating energy from the fuel that your body has, regenerating energy and allowing your body to use it. So the goal essentially of the aerobic system is to refuel the anaerobic systems, which allow you to better output higher levels of power while you fight. So the key that most athletes miss when they're training their aerobic system is training it at higher intensities. Most people think, I need to go longer. So again, they go for these 45-minute, hour-long runs, thinking that, the longer I can go, the better I can fight. Whereas what you're actually doing is you're training your aerobic system to regenerate energy slower. So because you're at a slower pace on those longer runs, you're training your aerobic system not to regenerate energy as quickly. And in turn, because it's not regenerating energy as quickly, you're not going to get that same return in the fast, high intensity, explosive nature of a fight. So when you're training the aerobic system, what you want to do is focus on, I believe I have it here, maybe not, focus on shorter duration aerobic effort. So this means 1 minute to 2 minutes of high intensity paced effort, followed by incomplete rest. So 30 seconds to a minute of rest. And by doing it this way, you're pushing your body still, because if you push as hard as you can push for 2 minutes, you're still going to be tired by doing that. And because you're keeping as high of a pace as you can during that time, your aerobic system is being trained to regenerate energy faster, which is going to translate to you having more energy while you fight. Now let's talk about the anaerobic alactic system. So the anaerobic alactic system is essentially the energy system that allows you to throw maximum intensity combinations. So it lasts about 0 to 12 seconds before it starts to drain out. And it is absolutely important, obviously, to be fighting with this system well trained, because if you can't be as explosive as you can be while you fight for very long. You're going to gas out fast. You're going to have problems. So you're going to get about 10 to 12 seconds of max effort intensity only before this system starts to fade. The key to training this system, again, and this is where a lot of people go wrong, is that with every effort, you are fully rested. So you're legitimately going to do sets of 0 to 12 seconds of effort. So one of my favorite ones is 5 hard med ball slams, and then you rest for a full minute. And that doesn't feel like a lot, but you're training your ability to go all out. So with those 5 slams, if you get as much out of each one of those slams as you can, you're draining that anaerobic alactic system. And then for that whole minute, it's regenerating energy. And once you've rested for that whole minute and the energy is regenerated, go again, max effort again, and do that for 8 to 10 rounds at most. Most people don't love to do that because they think that it's too short. They're not doing enough. They're not totally dead and gassed out by the end of the session, but you're not training your ability to hit your absolute limit. You're training your ability to be explosive and throw those max effort combinations you need in the fight. So usually I start, when we're going to get more into details of timing throughout the year, later days as well, but usually this is going to be a main focus in a fight camp, because this is one of the systems that starts to fade the fastest. So you don't want to be doing it all year round. You want to be focused on it in the last 4 to 6 weeks before a fight. Now, anaerobic lactic. So the main idea here is this is basically a bridge between true anaerobic work and aerobic training. So the goal of training this system is to increase your anaerobic threshold. And what that is basically your point of fatigue. So when you're in the ring or when you're in the cage and you start feeling that feeling like you're hitting a wall, like you just can't keep your hands up anymore, like your arms aren't moving as fast, like you're starting to hit that like I'm gassed out feeling, anaerobic lactic system is what pushes that feeling further and further back. So basically, we're aiming to improve your lactic capacity, which creates better fuel for your aerobic system. And as you have more fuel for your aerobic system, your anaerobic systems are able to use that fuel to regenerate more energy faster and faster and faster. So the key to training this system should still be pushing maximum intensity, but approximately 90 seconds of work with 60 to 120 seconds of rest. So you're not going to be able to sprint flat out for 90 seconds. And this is not a shot at anyone. That's just not how the human body works. But your goal is to keep yourself as close to 100% for that 90 seconds as you can, and then rest completely for 60 to 120 seconds to make sure you're ready for your next set. And I know that a lot of people see 60 to 120 seconds of rest and think, I'm just going to do 60, either because that's what I have in between rounds of the fight, or I want to rest the least amount I possibly can so that I'm working more. But the goal here is not just to output more. The goal is to actually affect this anaerobic system. And the way you're going to do that more effectively is by making sure that you are fully rested or as close to fully rested as possible every single effort. So if you're doing a session like this, 90 seconds of work and 60 to 120 seconds of rest, and your 60 seconds of rest is over, and you're still feeling like, oh my God, I can't put out another max intensity effort yet, give yourself extra time. You are going to get more benefit to this system, push your anaerobic threshold further, and prevent yourself from gassing out by resting more. I know that might not make sense off the top of your head, but as you think about it, when your body is better rested and you go into that second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth set, now every time you're giving yourself more rest, that means you have more energy to put into training this system. The more energy you have to put into training this system, the better and better result you're going to get. So, and we spoke about the aerobic system a little earlier. For some reason, that slide's in here twice, but the aerobic power that I was talking about, this is the set and rep scheme that we want to stick to. So when we're building up aerobic power, our focus is on making sure we stick to 4 to 12 sets of 60 to 120 seconds of work, followed by 45 to 60 seconds of rest. So we want to train that aerobic system with incomplete rest, making sure that we're not fully rested so that we're still generating our energy from the aerobic system, but we want to train it to regenerate energy as fast as we possibly can. So this is going to be the primary focus of your conditioning work in the off season, because the aerobic system, like I said, is the generator, meaning that the better your aerobic system is trained, the more efficiently your body's going to generate energy. And the more efficiently your body generates energy, the less often you're going to hit that wall or that gassed out feeling that I know all of you hate so much. All right. Questions? We are going to stop sharing and jump in here. Any questions for me on that?
That was cool. I like the science, man. Like I feel like science is a big thing in like this stuff, so I like that.
Yeah, man, 100%. Like, and that's that's one of the big issues I see, right? And like, I'm not, trying to take a shot at anybody or anybody's coaches, but like, I see so many coaches that like, oh, you've just got to go running more. But then if you ask them like, why, they're going to be like, cause cardio,
Yeah.
right? Like they do it because everybody's always done it that way, not because it's actually what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas
Yeah, I
like
see that.
this is how the human body works. Like I just walked you through how the energy systems interact in the body. And like this is why a lot of people that do a lot of cardio still don't have the gas tank
The
that they
gas,
think
yeah.
they should.
Huh. That's
Right. And
interesting.
some do. Like some run a lot and have great cardio when they fight. Others run a lot and still have terrible cardio when they fight because they're missing pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. That's
Right.
me for sure. Like I'll run and long distance stuff and I go in one round of spar and I'm like, I can't breathe anymore. Like fuck.
Yeah, because if you think about it, right, if you think about it like this, how close is the pace of your long distance runs to the pace of your sparring?
Yeah, exactly. Sparring is a
Right.
lot
It's
more intense, right? Obviously.
exactly.
So
It's
yeah.
entirely different. So those long distance runs are giving you that aerobic benefit. But honestly, when you're drilling and when you're practicing, you're getting a lot of that aerobic benefit anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Whereas
see.
if your time is spent more on the aerobic power, like I mentioned here, and those anaerobic systems, now what you're going to start to see is that when you're sparring, you've got that ability to be explosive because if your anaerobic systems are better trained, now when you throw that hard combination, you're not throwing one hard combination and then your body's going, okay, that's all the anaerobic energy we got. Take a minute before you do anything else.
Yeah, okay, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And for the app, like will it show like what we're supposed to do? Like what
Yeah,
exercises
I'm
we're
going to
supposed to
be
do?
putting that up tonight
Okay.
for a session that's going to start tomorrow.
Okay.
Um, and then, but do you have any other questions based off of anything we were talking about in there?
No, it looks pretty good so far. Yeah, I'm
Awesome,
good.
awesome. Is
It's
there
awesome,
anything
yeah.
you're taking away from that? Like anything that kind of you wouldn't have thought of before or anything like that?
I kind of like how like you're saying, but like the shorter set time, like less seconds is better than more. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? For
yeah,
depending what exercise, whatever. So I like that. That was cool.
exactly. Depending
Yeah.
on what you're focusing on, right? It's like if you're
Yeah.
trying to build your ability to be explosive and you're doing 30 reps, like the first 5 reps are going to be explosive and then it's going to start
The
to
rest are
fade, right?
gonna. Yeah.
Even if you're trying to be explosive, by rep 30, you're just not. And
Yeah, it's
then you're
impossible.
not getting the benefit you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of idea with the rest times too. Like a lot of people think, oh, I want to cut the rest time. Like it's supposed to be 3 minutes. I'm going to make it a minute and a half because then I'll do more work. It's
It's
like,
better.
yeah, you'll
Yeah.
do more work faster, but you're not going to be well rested for that work. And then you're not going to get as much out of it. And now you've done more work and gotten less result,
Yeah, I see.
right?
Yeah. That's
It's
that's awesome. I'm
interesting how it
excited,
all
man.
works, though.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how it all works though, right? Like,
It is.
yeah. And for anybody that is watching the replay, make sure if you've got any questions, anything that you're taking away, anything that you're not sure about, or anything that you want to dig into a little deeper, make sure you're sending me a message and we can absolutely touch on that when we talk again tomorrow.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And tomorrow we're going to be talking about how to get better conditioning results while actually putting less effort in. And I know saying something about less effort is like a cardinal sin, but we just want to work on making that more efficient. And the
Yeah.
more efficient we can make your training, the better result you're going to get faster.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
Okay.
man.
Thanks, boss. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of
Sounds
your
good.
night.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, see you later. Thank you.